Okay, it is 10 a.m. Moderator, are you ready for us to get started?
I think we're ready on this end.
Okay, wonderful. Good morning. I would like to open the October 11th, 2023 Cemetery and Funeral Bureau Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Gina Chavarini Sanchez. I'm the Bureau Chief. And before we begin and take roll, I'd like to thank everyone here participating both online and those of you that are in attendance today. This is a hybrid meeting, which I'm very grateful that we can continue these in this hybrid format. The public location is here at headquarters in Sacramento, California, and we are also virtual via WebEx, obviously. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting by making a public comment that is participating virtually via WebEx, you must have microphone availability on your computer. If you do not, there is also a phone call option to make public comments. The link to join the WebEx event along with the call-in number is available on the agenda, which can be found on CFB's Advisory Committee webpage. That can be found under the Quick Links section on the right side of our website, csb.ca.gov. All lines are currently on mute. As the meeting progresses through the agenda, the lines will remain on mute until I ask for public comment. The public comment period will be available after each agenda item is presented and discussed by the committee members. If you do have a public comment during the comment period, the moderator will inform you how to do so, depending on how you are participating. Public comment will be allotted to 5 minutes to each individual providing comments, and multiple comments are allowed. As a reminder to CFB's members, committee members, once each agenda item is being presented, I'll ask for discussion. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to press the small hand icon on your screen, and either myself or the moderator will call on you in case I don't see the hand. This approach is necessary to facilitate this meeting and to ensure the Bureau can complete its necessary business. Again, I appreciate everyone's understanding and patience as we navigate this meeting format. Before we get started, I'd like to ask the moderator if there are any other general instructions.
I request that we take comments from the room before we take comments online.
Okay.
Other than that, as was stated before, we'll have a 5-minute period for speaking with a 15-second warning.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to take a moment and do roll call. Committee members, once I call your name, please unmute your line on your end and let me know you are here. So Ms. Jasmine Bedios.
Here.
Great. Ms. Chanel O'Farrell.
I'm here.
Wonderful. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Jason Bensing. Here in the Sacramento headquarters with us. Mr. Jacob Jett. Okay, saw him already. I didn't hear you, Mr. Jett, but I did see your face earlier.
Can you hear me?
No? Oh, I can hear you, yes. You're a little bit quiet, but I can hear you. Thank you. Ms. Jolina Grande.
Present.
Wonderful, thank you. And has Ms. McMillan joined us just yet? Not yet. Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, thank you. I just want to extend my gratitude for our committee members' time. I know you're all very busy. The Bureau sincerely appreciates your dedication to this industry and to your advisory role with the Bureau. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to YouTube and linked to our website at a later date. So that is agenda item 1 for introductions and roll call. I'd like to move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. Moving into item 2, at this time, I'd like to take public comments for items not on the agenda. If anyone in the audience would like to make any public comments about issues that are not on the agenda, you can do so at this time. Please type the word comment into the chat box, or you can make a meeting on the chat box, or raise your hand and they will call on you. Please keep comments to 5 minutes as we discussed, and also neither committee members nor Bureau staff may comment on what is said during the public comment period as stated in the agenda for this meeting. So I would like to open it up for any public comment at this time.
And did I hear that no one is in the room?
Yes, is there any public comment in the room? Nope, okay. Go ahead and take any online comments.
All right, we are open for comments online. We'll be displaying instructions momentarily. If you would like to make a comment, as stated before, the best way is to raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users may dial *3 to raise a hand. People may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. And we have a request for comment from Maria Magnini. I hope I said that correctly. I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak with a 15-second warning.
Did attendance. I'm a committee member and I'm here online.
All right, let's get you taken care of. Hold on
Thank
just a
you
moment.
for that. We'll mark you down in the attendance. I appreciate that. Welcome.
Are there any other requests for comment? You may raise your hand by dialing.
Janelle O'Farrell has her hand up. Unmute.
Hi, good morning. I'm afraid I'm in trouble accessing my video on my little iPad, so I apologize.
No problem.
I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I just wanted to mention, perhaps for a future agenda item, or perhaps even when we're discussing the sunset review process, but Health and Safety Code 102775, registering death certificates within 8 calendar days. The concern being that more funeral homes are getting pressure from their county offices in regard to this law or this code, and it's something that just needs to be discussed before any more penalties or pressure continue to be placed on the mortuaries. It could also affect the public. It's going to cause more frustration for vital records as well. And that's just something that I wanted to bring up now for maybe further discussion in the future. I don't think I can hear you, Miss Gina.
Bear with us just a moment.
No problem.
For those in the El Dorado room, you may need to dial *3.
Okay, is that
There it
working
is.
now?
Perfect.
Oh, we figured it out. Okay. Ms. Pearl, thank you very much for bringing up that topic. That's definitely something that we should consider putting on a future agenda item. Absolutely. I appreciate that feedback. I know that there's a lot of people in play when it comes to Health and Safety Code 102775. So I think that is will be on the list for a future agenda item. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And with
Any
that, there
other?
are no other requests for comment online. Do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Okay, let's go to our agenda item number 3, which is the update on the development of the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau Strategic Plan. Will now run from 2024 to 2028. Our current strategic plan, which was developed, I think, within the first few months of my appointment in this position, it does expire at the end of 2023. So we have completed and or made significant progress on each of the goals and the objectives in the 2019 to 23 plan. And with the support of Department's Solid Planning Solutions, the Bureau has already begun the development of its next plan. So with us here today to present on this topic is Ann Fisher, Solid Planning Solutions Strategic Business Analyst and Facilitator. And I will now turn it over to you, Ann.
Thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead and have a separate PowerPoint where we'll go over the strategic planning overview and give you an idea of what's to come. So to reintroduce myself, I'm Ann Fisher, and I'm part of the strategic planning unit of the DCA. And David, your moderator, is actually going to be working with me on the strategic plan as well. And we're going to be providing you with a quick overview of the process. So first, we will go ahead and cover the what, why, and how of strategic planning. So a strategic plan takes into account the mission and vision and values and goals and stakeholder feedback, all of those things that document the objectives that you're going to be working on over the next few years. Strategic planning is a process through which the fundamental decisions and actions are produced that shape and guide what your organization is, what it does, and why it does it. It defines your organization's direction and outlines a path from your present towards your ideal future. We do need to do strategic planning partly because it's critical to making state government programs and operations more effective. In the 1990s, there was actually legislation enacted commanding state agencies to develop strategic plans, but it's also helpful to get your program more efficient at achieving short-term and long-term objectives. But for a strategic plan to work, it has to contain specific goals and measurable objectives, as well as a plan for achieving them. So at DCA, we use a 5-phase approach, which includes surveying all the various stakeholder groups, and then we compile a trends report of all that feedback. And then we do a facilitated workshop where we will guide the Bureau's leadership in identifying objectives. So let's take a look at that planning roadmap in a little more detail. And let's see. So as you can see on this roadmap, we've got 5 basic stages of strategic planning and the broad list of tasks that happen in each of those stages. And then at the very top, you'll see we've layered in some time frames associated with process, and it does take time. It is an important legislatively mandated process, and it does deserve the time and attention needed for you to create your own roadmap that will define your direction, your path, and from now for the next few years. In addition, you may be aware that the governor has issued an executive order to strengthen the state's commitment to California for All by directing state agencies and departments to take additional actions to embed equity analysis and consideration into all of its policies and practices. And this includes the strategic planning process. Here at DCA, we're driven by consumer protection as our primary mission, and our common goal to support our employees and the people and communities across California. As such, you'll find we've improved our strategic planning process to reflect this commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is often abbreviated to be DEI. So DEI and demographic-specific questions have been incorporated into the surveys, and analysis will be provided in the report that we produce for you. You may consider developing a specific DEI-related goal, or you may simply weave those ideas into your objectives as the leadership makes the strategic plan. And we'll be asking everyone to consider the DEI impacts of policy decisions as you develop your objectives. So does anyone have any questions so far about the strategic planning process? And I did hear a hand go up. Let's see. I'm having problems identifying whose hand went up though.
I don't believe there are any hands up at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So no questions. I'd be happy to go ahead and hand this off to David so that he can go through the breakdown of the components of the strategic plan. So David, it's all yours.
Bear with me just a moment here. All right. So, incorporating DEI is going to include adding adding demographic questions and surveys, including DEI analysis in the report, encouraging DEI in goals and objectives, and reminding planning session participants to consider DEI impacts of policy decisions. Forgive me, Anne, would you be willing to take care of this? There are other things going on in the background.
Certainly, absolutely. So as we continue with what we do in strategic planning, the basics are we cover where we are now, which includes looking at your mission statement and your values. And the survey results in the environmental scan will show us that. The where we are going, which is the vision statement for the Bureau, and the goals and objectives. And then the action planning is how we're actually going to get to our final goal. So let's go ahead and talk about the mission statement. And my apologies that we don't have your current mission statement in, but let me grab that really quick. But the leadership and Solid did go through and define and fine tune the mission statement, the vision statement, the values, and the goal areas in a session earlier in June. So we've got all those updated and fine tuned. So let me skip through to, this is not the right one. My apologies. But the mission statement will be a reflection of the mission statement that we refined earlier. We will have the values that the Bureau has identified as being critical and exemplary of what you choose to value. And we're gonna values define how you do what you do. Things like transparency or customer service or efficiency might change the approach that you use when you approach your procedures and policies. So what we will do is we'll seek feedback from both internal and external stakeholders. And we'll do that by doing a SWOT analysis, which is we look at the strengths and weaknesses, that's the SW, and the opportunities and threats, that's OT for SWOT analysis. So internal stakeholders are going to include DCA staff, the Bureau leadership, you advisory committee members. We're going to, as a part of this project, we'll be emailing you to ask if you would interview with us so that we can get your unique viewpoint on the issues that face the Bureau and the profession. And so we will email out those interview invitations this week. And the Let's see, some examples of some of the external stakeholders would include certainly licensees, but also consumers and consumer groups, industry associations, anyone else who's affected by the work of the Bureau or the industry. So let's see here. The goals that we went through with the Bureau leadership are long-term, they're broad, they give general direction and action, but the objectives are more short-term. For instance, a goal area could be technology, and then the objective under that might be develop a software application to support enforcement and field investigations. So the goals are more general and the objectives are a little more specific, but not overly granular. So then objectives that are created for the goal areas are based on important trends that we identify in the surveys and the interviews, as well as any issues or initiatives that the Bureau might like to address. And during the strategic planning session, the leadership team will have time to discuss, assess, and develop the objectives for the next few years. So we've identified how we want to be drafting, but how do we get there? The leadership of the Bureau will meet with Solid to discuss which objectives we've settled on, assess the available resources, outline the action steps towards accomplishing these objectives through identifying individual tasks and assigning the tasks and establishing a time frame. And this whole process is called action planning. And then finally, how do we assess our progress? We have some performance measures that we will take a look at, and we'll do some monitoring and tracking. Solid develops a tracking tool for the use, and theoretically you will get updates at the meetings about how things are going with that. So thank you for your time today. Apologies for the technical issues, but I look forward to working with you and building a new strategic plan for this year. Are there any questions from anyone on the committee or CFB staff?
Anne, thank you very much for that presentation. I am greatly looking forward to the new strategic plan. I just wanted to highlight that Anne and her team, David, will be reaching out to every member over the next week to try and do an over-the-phone interview, or whether it's virtual or over-the-phone interview on the goals and objectives and the questions in the environmental scan. I think that interaction over the phone or in virtual setting with the members will give you a chance to really express where this Bureau should be, where we should be taking this Bureau in the next 4 years. So look for that. Sandy and I already had our one-on-ones, and Michelle. So they are anonymous, so please feel free to be honest and forthcoming. And again, to any other stakeholder out there, we are encouraging to take the survey. It's currently open. I've got email blast. It's linked on the website. We'll be doing some more Facebook posts to try and get as many stakeholders in as many different areas and groups that we can to really make it inclusive of the California consumers and their needs. So is there any comments here at headquarters? No? Okay, we'll take any committee member comments that are on virtually.
And it looks like Jolena, you've got your hand up.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for walking us through what will be the next strategic plan. I was just wondering, will we be seeing a draft of this at the next advisory committee meeting prior to its adoption, or does it go from the draft to adoption, so the next report out we'll see is the finalized strategic plan?
The process for bureaus. Oh, go ahead.
No, please, Anne, go ahead.
The process for Department of Consumer Affairs is that we create the plan, we let Gina, the chief, look it over, and then DCA exec approves it. You may well end up seeing drafts in progress, but the final will be approved by the DCA executive.
Yeah, it's not, in a further agenda item, we're going to talk about potentially having a stakeholder meeting in January to discuss in depth the sunset report, but that's coming up in a few minutes. But that is an opportunity in January to release the plan very early in its, after it's been finalized, but very early before it's massively released out. So if there are any significant issues, they could be brought up in that public forum there for sure. But that is the process. They go through the environmental scan. It gets assessed internally, and the decision is finalized by the director. So we're very much looking forward to the interviews and the scan and see what the outcome is of the trends, the threats, the opportunities for the industry. I think it'll be a really good plan this year for this next 4 years. Okay, is there any other committee member comments? Did you have anything else, Jolena? Okay, we'll open it up for public comment then. Is there any public comment in the room? No? Then we'll move it up to public comments online. Is there any public comment? Go ahead, moderator.
We are accepting public comment on the strategic plan. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button. Dial-in users will need to dial *3 to raise a hand. Everyone may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Let's take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Looking around, I don't see any requests for comment. Would you like to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. We're moving on to agenda item number 4. So at this, the update from the Department of Consumer Affairs. Today with us, we have Melissa Geer, the Board and Bureau Liaison for the department. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to you, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello and good morning, Bureau Chief Sanchez and Bureau Advisory Committee members. I'm Melissa Geer, Deputy Director for Board and Bureau Relations, and I appreciate the opportunity to share the Department of Consumer Affairs update this morning. I have several updates and reminders to share, starting with an update on DCA's DEI efforts. On September 29th, the DEI Steering Committee held its quarterly meeting. The committee discussed employment engagement, cultural events and observances, membership composition, DEI training, DEI hiring principles, and the development of a DEI webpage for employees. The committee plans to roll out DEI hiring principles and launch the Internet DEI webpage by the end of the year. The DEI Steering Committee is pleased to announce that outside consultant Dr. Bernard Gibson provided in-person DEI training to over 150 DCA managers, supervisors, and leaders on October 4th. In addition, Dr. Gibson provided virtual training to board members on October 9th. For those that attended the training, please be sure to take the survey emailed after the training. Your opinions are vital in determining future training needs and opportunities. Dr. Gibson has 20 years corporate experience managing teams and training employees in business effectiveness. Dr. Gibson also has extensive teaching experience at various colleges, including serving as adjunct faculty since 2006 at University of Massachusetts for the School of Business and Professional Studies. On November 7th, UMass consultant Christopher Ville will provide training entitled DEI Dialogue for Leaders to DCA Managers, Supervisors, and Leaders. Ville's training will include example language and tools, discuss psychological training and how it impacts these conversations, and include interactive discussion around challenges leaders are facing. DCA encourages all executive officers and their management teams to attend. Finally, the DEI Steering Committee is pleased to highlight the work of the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, or BBC, which is collaborating with the Los Angeles County Probation Department to launch the first youth and county level barbering program. The board hopes to have it operational by late winter. Furthermore, the board has been collaborating with the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, or CDCR, to relaunch its testing program with state correctional facilities, expanding to include barbering, and it's anticipated that this will be a large program with 4 facilities committing to including barbering schools. If your bureau has DEI activities you would like to share with other boards and bureaus, please share them with DCA Board and Bureau Relations. Also, to ensure the department's efforts to reach the Californians we serve, CCA will request boards and bureaus translate press releases into Spanish, California's top non-English language. Establish a standard for translating releases into both English and Spanish, and encourage the evaluation of additional languages that may serve their audiences and enhance the information released to Californians. For questions and more information, please contact DCA's Office of Public Affairs. Next, as you may have heard, on September 13th, Senate Bill 143 was signed by Governor Newsom and became effective immediately. Included in this bill was language related to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, which allows for remote public meetings without noticed locations accessible to the public until December 31st. In addition, Senate Bill 544, a bill also pertaining to the Open Meeting Act, was signed by the governor. Commencing on January 1st, 2024, 4 meeting options will be available under Bagley-Keene. First, traditional single location option. Majority of members gathered at one publicly noticed and accessible location. Will also permit no members participating remotely. There will also be a requirement to allow remote public participation. Second option, traditional teleconference option. Members at different publicly noticed and accessible locations can be connected via phone or WebEx, and there'll be no requirement to allow remote public participation. Third option is the new teleconference option. Majority of members gathered at one publicly noticed and accessible location. Extra members above a majority can participate remotely from private, non-public sites, and then members must allow remote public participation. And the fourth option is new for advisory board teleconference. All members can participate remotely from private, non-public sites, but they must have one publicly noticed or at least one staff member as present and where the public can participate in the meeting, and it must allow for remote public access. We encourage boards and bureaus to work closely with their board councils to ensure compliance with the Open Meeting Act. Please keep the following reminders in mind as you begin to prepare to close out this year and look ahead to 2024. First, as we approach the final months of this year, there are 2 DCA-wide mandatory trainings that if you haven't already completed, we ask that you do so immediately. This includes sexual harassment prevention training and information security awareness. All DCA employees and appointees, including board and advisory council members, will need to complete their sexual harassment prevention training this year. Board members must take the 2-hour supervisory training, and advisory council members must take the 1-hour non-supervisory training. This training is required every odd-numbered year and is online, self-paced, in approximately 2 hours. Additionally, for board members with an assigned DCA email, they are required to complete the Information Security Awareness Fundamentals training. Both the Sexual Harassment Prevention Training and Information Security Awareness Training are available in the department's Learning Management System. If board members need assistance in accessing LMS and these trainings, please reach out to Board and Bureau Relations. Second, board members must complete board member orientation training, also known as BMONT, within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. The final BMONT of this year was conducted yesterday, October 10th. Once the 2024 dates have been finalized, Board and Bureau Relations will notify your executive officer or bureau chief, as well as notify members who need to take it but were unable to do so this year. Members can register for this training via LMS. Third, on September 13th, Governor Newsom signed Senate Bill 447, authored by Senate President Pro Tem Atkins. which ends California's restrictions on taxpayer-funded travel by state agencies and departments to states that have adopted discriminatory anti-LGBTQ+ laws. SB 447 eliminated California's restricted states travel list and created a new public awareness project that will consult with community leaders to promote California's values of acceptance and inclusion of the LGBTQ+ community across the country. In the past, several out-of-state trips requested by boards and bureaus were not authorized because the travel was to a state on the restricted travel list. This will lift that restriction and permit out-of-state travel to all states if this trip is critical to the functions and needs of the board. If you have any questions, please reach out to your executive officer or bureau chief, board and bureau relations for additional information. And lastly, this year's DCA, Our Promise State Employees Giving at Work campaign co-chairs are Monica Vargas, Deputy Director of Communications, and Yvonne Durantes, Assistant Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations. This annual campaign gives state employees, including board members, an opportunity to support nonprofits through a one-time donation or payroll deduction. These contributions make a positive impact by providing vital resources to those experiencing poverty, homelessness, food insecurity, and also offer support to causes such as veterans, animals, the environment, and more. We hope you will join the state's campaign and contribute to a nonprofit or nonprofits of your choice. With your assistance, DCA will continue its tradition of generosity and caring for our communities. This year's campaign officially kicked off on October 5th and runs through December 31st. For additional information, please contact Yvonne Durantes. Excuse me. As I close, I wanted to share that the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency Secretary, Lourdes Castro Ramirez, recently announced that she has been appointed to serve as the Chief of Housing and Homelessness in the Office of Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, effective November 2nd. Secretary Castro Ramirez has been an extraordinary partner to DCA and the boards and bureaus. She has also been a consumer protection champion. We are grateful for her leadership and we will miss her very much. Thank you again for this opportunity, and I welcome any questions from the Bureau.
Thank you very much, Melissa. What a very thorough report. Appreciate every topic you hit on. I really did enjoy the DEI training. That was just last week. All CSD management did attend and were scheduled, and looking forward to the one on November 7th. Absolutely, those were amazing. In regards to the Open Meeting Act, those 4 options, it's a great thing. We still qualify as we are right now under option number 4. So if we do decide to continue the WebEx, we would still be under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act with option number 4 of having a WebEx remote access and a staff in a publicly disclosed location. So we'll still be able to hold meetings just like this with limited cost to our members, which is great. So in regards to the training, Carolina Sammons, who's here with us today, and as all my members know her very well, she will help you through the trainings if you need help setting up or logging into the learning management system, also called LMS, to get the sexual harassment prevention done. I do appreciate those members who have already signed up. I did see that, so I appreciate that. And then we'll also discuss maybe all of us at once going to the next BMOT training together. I think that's all virtual also. Yes, right? Okay. Some are, some aren't. Correct. Okay. Some are, some aren't. So Carolina will also work with that with the members and myself in getting to the next BMOT training. So are there any other questions here in the room for Ms. Geer? Okay. Any member discussion online or virtually? This topic. Seeing no hands. Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment for agenda item number 4, please.
We're accepting public comment online for agenda item 4. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users will need to dial *3 to raise a hand. Anyone may type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 5, update on Bureau activities. So there are a few different presenters for agenda item number 5. We'll be providing an update on each topic listed in the agenda A through F. Please, committee members, press your hand raise button if you have any questions on these topics. I'm more than happy to stop in between if there's questions in between. However, normally on this agenda topic, I will ask for committee member comment and public comment after all the presentations have been completed from A through F. So beginning with 5A, the sunset review process. Every 4 years, and in our specific case due to the pandemic, it was 5 years, the Bureau must prepare a report that's submitted to the legislature on Bureau activities. Rose Turner, the legislative manager with the department's legislative office, presented on this topic in detail in May and provided the steps to the process of this very large report. So the Bureau will have the report completed and submitted to the legislature, which is the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development and the Assembly Committee on Business and Professions by the end of this year. So at that time, the report will be public, and the Bureau is expecting to hold a public stakeholder meeting in early January to discuss the report in detail. So it'll be 5 years of Bureau statistics, Bureau activities, and along with any new issues the Bureau has identified in the report. So we can really go in through detail. That will get, of course, posted 10 days in advance, sent to the committee members for your review. It is a large report, we're expecting about 100 pages with the attachments, so or more. So it is a large report to review, but we'll be more than happy. That would be the only thing on the agenda in January, except for what we discussed before, which was potentially maybe the strategic plan also, to go over those 2 things in detail. I tried to get those off the same cycle, 4 years and 5 years, but because of the 5-year sunset, we're on the same cycle as those. So it kind of make it easier in January, and we can go over them both at the same time. So that is it for the sunset review process at this time. I would like to thank all the staff and the department for all the work that's been put into it so far. I appreciate it. It is a large report that does take a lot of staff time, so I appreciate everyone's assistance on that. But it really is an opportunity for the Bureau to almost brag about everything that we've completed and how successful, and also an opportunity to identify trends and issues as well, get that help and support from the legislature. So we're looking forward to that report. Moving on to B, for staffing, we have, I feel like I keep saying this, we have 2 vacancies that we anticipate being filled very soon. The field representative, which was discussed in the May meeting, is now very, very close to being filled. The field representative is a position that performs investigations and inspections. They do have to be licensed in Balmers, and there is an exam they have to pass prior to applying and getting appointed to the job. So it is a process, and we are almost at the end of that process. So we're looking forward to a new field representative down in the Los Angeles County area. Is that correct?
Yes.
The second position is an Associate Governmental Program Analyst, or AGPA. This is not the same AGPA that we mentioned in May. That position has been filled, overseeing and supporting, or leading and supporting the field unit. This AGPA is a newly vacant position. The listing is actually still active on jobs.ca.gov. This position covers the discipline desk, which regularly works with the Office of the Attorney General and monitors licensees on probation, among other duties. So there is a contact number on the posting if anyone has any questions about that position. Again, it's currently active on jobs.ca.gov. If anyone's qualified and like to apply. Moving on to the budget, that's always, there is a handout for the budget topic, the CFB fund condition. I'm not sure if we have that up, moderator, as a slide we can reference.
You should be seeing
Very
it
good.
online now.
Okay. Yes, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, so as part of the meeting materials, there is this fund condition that's linked on our website. It's provided as of September 6th, 2023. It shows the column that starts with PY, that stands for previous year. So the Bureau ended fiscal year 22-23 collecting close to $5.1 million in total revenue, which is right there kind of towards the bottom of the screen where it says 5.154. And the previous year, which is not on here, which is 21-22, we collected a total revenue of $4.5 million. So that increase was due to the 6 months that we had the fee increase from January 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2023. So we did see an increase in our revenue due to that. However, total expenditures for 22-23 was approximately $6.1 million. If you scroll down a little bit on this handout, you'll see at the bottom it says total expenditures of $6.162. And then we had an additional $411,000 in additional direct costs to the Bureau's fund, which is at the bottom, shows the state operations pro rata and supplemental pension payments. So the Bureau ended 22-23 with a fund balance of $2.5 million and 4.4 months in reserve. Excuse me, 4.3 months in reserve. So it's important to note at the end of 22-23, the Bureau's fund still showed a structural deficit, as you can see from the higher total expenses being paid versus the revenue coming in. So it's approximately $1 million. However, as a result of recent enacted legislation, as I just discussed, SB 1443, a fee increase was established in January of 2023. So the current year of 23-24 will be the first full fiscal year with the new fees. So one of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years, which is shown by BY, BY plus 1, and BY plus 2, those future year columns. They do include general salary increases, as well as employee compensation and retirement adjustments. Additionally, oh, I'm hitting a button. Sorry, is that showing on that screen or just our screen? Just our screen. Oh.
This is the moderator. I've just locked everyone's view to my screen.
Okay, so I did press a button. I may need to get us back in. I'm sorry about that, everyone. So you can still hear us, but just not see us. No, that's from.
We can hear you, and everyone is looking at the fund condition.
Okay, well then I will just keep talking until I can get us back on the camera. So initially, the budget office includes an ongoing 3% increase in expenditures to account for these incremental adjustments. However, they do project the revenues to remain consistent. So that's why you'll see an increase in the expenditures each year under the BYs, but the revenue remains consistent. They do not automatically add any increase there. So the months in reserve at the bottom is the amount of time the board can continue normal operations without any incoming revenue. Historically, the Bureau has been conservative in its spending, and typically we have carryover from the previous years, thus pushing out the months in reserve. So we're going to move, so that is it on the fund condition. I will take questions on that after we discuss item F. And go ahead, I'm going to move on to business modernization and turn it over to Sandra Patterson, our Deputy Bureau Chief.
Thank you, Chief Sanchez, for the opportunity to provide a brief update on the business modernization efforts. The Bureau is participating in Department of Consumer Affairs Business Modernization Project, commonly referred to as BizMod, and has been working towards implementing an information technology solution that meets the needs of the Bureau. BizMod is an initiative to identify and implement business and technology improvements to the Bureau's antiquated information technology system, moving the Bureau and its stakeholders to a platform that allows for online submission of applications and reports and faster processing times and electronic payments. Over the past 2 years, the Bureau has been heavily involved in the development of the new IT platform by providing subject matter experts, testing functionality, and giving feedback to the developers. The new database, named CFB Connect, went live in May of 2023, and with the availability of an online funeral director application. The Bureau is actively working towards the release of additional initial licensure applications for business and personal licenses, and the release of license maintenance applications such as name changes, address changes, change of manager or corporate officer, et cetera. The release of the next online application for an original funeral establishment license is expected to be in early 2022, not January, early 2024. Thank you. Sorry, correction, in early 2024. The modernization effort will also allow staff to easily access statistical data and increase accessibility, accuracy, and productivity. Finally, as the Bureau transitions towards a more efficient electronic business practices and more applications are released online, the paper applications will eventually be removed from the Bureau's website and will only be made available upon request. As we move into the future, we are encouraging electronic submission of applications as it increases productivity within the Bureau and decreases overall processing time. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. Business modernization, that's one of my most favorite topics. Obviously, the cemetery salesperson was out, a couple of years ago now. But the funeral director application was released in May. We have been receiving about 50% online versus,
Sounds about right.
About 50% online versus paper. And as Sandra said, as we move more towards an electronic bureau to expedite our processing times, submission, and so on, we will be removing the paper apps after a significant amount of time that the electronic app has been on, just to kind of transition everyone into the electronic system. Because even if a paper app is sent, we still have to key in all the information into the electronic system. One of the benefits of this system is that the applicant is actually keying in their own information, which eliminates a lot of human error in data entry and also, of course, a lot of time. So that will be transitioning soon. We're not taking the funeral director off right this very moment, but it is coming. I am going to turn it over to Michelle. You may not have the slides as we go because I'm still working on getting it back online, but is that okay?
Yeah, I can work through it.
You can wing it, okay? I'm going to move on to letter E, the audit unit update. Michelle Arthur is our audit manager, and I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. The Bureau has been scheduling communications via the email blast and the Facebook, reminding licensees of the timeliness of these reports and the due dates, so that has been helpful. For the 2021, the funeral establishment annual reports, the funeral establishments are required to report via Business Professions Code 7746 to file a declaration of non-reporting status, or 16 CCR 1269 to file a funeral pre-need trust fund report and audited financial statements. 715 of the 1,100 or so, so 64%, have submitted their annual reports on time. 1% being 30 days late, 32 90 days late, and a little over 33 or 3% have not reported. This is consistent year over year as most licensees don't realize they have to file a annual declaration of non-reporting status every year. We do send out a bunch of late notices regarding this, and the email blasts and Facebook posts have been helpful. For 2021 cemetery annual reports, they were required to file an annual report with us, Business Professions Code 7612.6, annual report and the audited financial statements. 162 of the 191, or 83%, have been received on time. 3% being 30 days late, 1% being 60 days late, and 5% being more than 90, and only 1% have not reported at all, or 1% are not due yet. They're due in August and September. 13 cemeteries, or 7%, have not reported at all or have filed late. Pursuant to Business Professions Code 7612.10 and CCR 2388, there is a fine of $400 for each month. A cemetery submits its report late with a maximum of 5 months or $2,000. Next, quarterly reporting. As Gina had mentioned, starting January 1st of 2023, the regulatory fee has increased from $8.50 to $11.50. For cemeteries, they are required to report a quarterly report, Business Professions Code 7730.10, to submit a regulatory charge of $11.50 for each burial, entombment, or interment made during the preceding quarter. These reports have been very timely, thankfully. Over 90% are submitted on time. Only 3% of the cemetery quarterly reports have not been received, and the Bureau has begun enforcement actions against these licensees who failed to report. Moving on to crematories, they are required to submit the regulatory fee for Business Professions Code 7712.9 for every cremation made during the preceding quarter. Timely reporting is also very good for crematories, over 85% on time. Only 5% of the crematory quarterly reports have not been received. And as mentioned before, we have begun enforcement actions against these licensees who failed to report. Hydrolysis facilities are required to report under Business Professions Code 7730.11. And there is only one at this point in time, and they always report on time. So thank you very much for the hydrolysis facility. Lastly, is just kind of an oversight of the funds that the Bureau oversees. This is for 2021. So as of 2021, we oversee about $3 billion. Of these funds, $1.4 billion is endowment care funds, over $930 million is special care funds on the cemetery side, and over $787 million in funeral pre-need funds. There are 191 individual cemetery licenses that hold ECFs, 142 cemetery licenses that hold SCF, or the special care fund, and on the funeral side, 685 establishments hold pre-need funds representing over 55,000 individual consumer pre-need contracts. Any questions?
Wow, so 55,000 individuals are within that 787 per million. 55,000 consumers. A lot. Okay. Move on to the last topic very quickly, and then we can go into questions. Thank you very much. Oh, I think I am back on. I can start our video again as soon as I can control this mouse. All right, it may take a second. There we are. Okay. So the last topic, letter F, cremated remains disposer booklet. In May, we put out our draft of the disposer, the CRD booklet, or cremated remains disposer booklet. It was mostly altered just to include hydrolysis. However, we asked for comments and no comments were made, so it is now in its final version and posted to the website. So that is the kind of closing the loop on the CRD booklet. And that takes care of agenda item number 5. Is there any comment from committee member, Mr. Vinci? Do you have any comments before we turn it over to the rest of the members?
No.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the committee members virtually? No hands.
It looks like Jolena has her hand up.
Okay, Jolena, please.
Thank you very much. I'm particularly fascinated with the budget projections and losing ground on the number of months in reserve. I thought one of the major reasons why we were looking at the increase in the renewals and initial licensure application fees was to help with the number of months in reserve. You mentioned that there's an automatic escalation estimate of 3% for the expense side with revenue remaining static. However, I also noticed that there was an approximation of additional revenue increases for delinquency of licenses in terms of renewal. And I was wondering, are we seeing an increased number of delinquent licenses that ultimately will be non-renewals and cancellations over time because of the escalation in the fees that became effective in January?
Yes, thank you for that question. We actually have had this conversation internally about individuals who have decided not to renew this year because we got a lot of calls. They were not using their license at the time, and they would just wanted to keep it, you know, just in case. Plus, we worked very hard at getting a lot of these licenses. So they just wanted to keep it, and it did deter them from renewing. I don't believe it affected the industry because the only calls we got were those that weren't currently using the license. Additionally, with our population, it has historically remained pretty stagnant, our population numbers. More so even this year, where we did see a lot of business applications, but they were mostly assignments, major assignments of, you know, larger corporations taking over other businesses. So it didn't necessarily increase our population numbers but it did provide consumers with continuity of businesses they already, you know, knew in the locations they had. So that is one of the biggest revenues that other boards and bureaus see, is that increased license population, which we have not seen in, I think, 10 years. I think I did a 10-year look back at one point in this position, and it just is not growing. And so we did see a little bit of a population decline this past year. I think we were at 13. We always say we're at 13.5, and now we're at like 13.1 somewhere. I'm giving approximates because I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we did see a decrease in population. So, of course, we don't know why, but judging by the calls that were received, it's mostly those not renewing. So, again, I did want to make one other comment, because you are correct, you know, in saying that, you know, and restating that the revenue stays the same, but the expenditures will continue to rise. Additionally, the Bureau, the current year and the 3 out years also take into account of the Bureau fully expending its full budget. So historically, we've had carryover from year to year, and so that then pushes our months in reserve out. So as long as we have around, I think they said between 1 and 3 months in reserve, I think that's a pretty safe bet. And we do expect, when we did the fee proposal, we did post in there that we do expect to have fees at least through 27, 28. So this fund condition, as we see it, just even from this one to the May one, you know, these months in reserve kind of fluctuate all the time. So in the 27, 28, you know, goal that we projected with the fee proposal, that is, of course, barring any major lawsuits, any major enforcement activity, major increases in enforcement activity. Those are really where the expenditures, you know, we can not print on colored paper and save money in postage in various places as we go to maybe postcard renewals and stuff, which the Bureau is researching, but nothing as significant as, you know, enforcement costs or an outstanding lawsuit costs. Those would much more affect our months in reserve, absolutely. I hope I answered that, Jolena. It may not have been to your to what you needed to hear, but is that okay? Okay.
You did a great job.
additional
Thank you
questions?
so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there any additional questions? Okay, I'd like to open it up to public comment for those participating virtually, please.
We are now accepting public comment on all of agenda item 5. If you'd like to make a comment, please tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen to raise a hand. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand. And anyone may type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Looking around, I see no requests for public comment at the moment. Do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 6, 2023 chaptered legislation. This is chaptered legislation specific to Cemetery and Funeral Bureau, and I will turn it over to Ms. Carolina Sammons, our legislative analyst.
Thank you, Gina. Good morning. 2023 legislation, this chapter that directly affects the Bureau is Assembly Bill 1560, introduced by Assemblymember Flora, Crematories Change in Ownership. The new law amends Business and Professions Code Section 7712.1. It now authorizes a crematory license to be assigned when a change of ownership occurs under specified certain conditions, including a payment of a fee of $750 to the Bureau. This law becomes in effect January 1st, 2024. This concludes my presentation for the chapter legislation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This statute is actually it's a very successful statute where the Bureau worked very well with the associations to develop statutory language. We provided technical assistance to provide statutory oh my gosh, anyway, to allow continuity of business for crematories. So right now in the Cemetery and Funeral Act, there is a method that original funeral establishments, if it's taken over by a new corporation, they allow an assignment of not only the license number, but the business itself to a whole new owner. There's a 6-month time frame or so that this must happen in within the turnover. So we took, the Bureau looked at that law and looked at the need for continuity of business. We only have a little over 220 crematories in the state. The state of California is going to reach, it is expected to reach almost a 70% cremation rate for individuals for deaths in the state each year. So it is important and imperative that crematories can continue operating during a change of ownership. So very successfully, we worked on this statute to allow some pre-issuance of the license requirements and then post-issuance of the license requirements that they must meet. So on the pre-issuance, they have to apply and all these things, application, pay the fee, give us documents, will then issue a license. If they do not meet the post requirements, we then, the Bureau has authority to pursue disciplinary action on that license for not abiding by the post requirements. So this statute will mandate a form, a new form, yay. So that is what Carolina and myself and the team will be working on. I do not imagine that we will need much regulatory language. I feel like this statute is very thorough, but again, we will be putting out, you know, we may have to have a stakeholder meeting to get out our regulatory language as soon as we can. As you know, this goes into effect January 1, which does not give us much time to do a regulatory package. But we are going as fast as we can in developing this form and getting that through. And I would love input and feedback, obviously, from the committee and all CFB stakeholders as we go through that process. So is there any comments from committee members on the chapter legislation from AB 1560? Do you have any questions? All right, anything, comments from the committee members virtually? Don't see any. Okay, then I would like to open it up to public comment for the public that's participating virtually.
We are now accepting public comments online. If you'd like to make a comment, tap that hand button to raise a hand. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise a hand. And anyone may type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. And it looks like we have a request for comment from Jerry Desmond. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak with a 15-second warning. All right, Jerry, we've sent you a request to unmute your microphone. We're going to send you a second request to unmute. If you are on a mobile device, you may need to go to the main screen in order to unmute. I see your comment there. Hold on just a moment. Let's send you another request to unmute. All right, bear with us just a moment. I'm going to see if we can get a technical slide up. All right, I see you've written something. Just want to say that they appreciate the DCA and Cemetery Funeral Bureau effort on AB 1560. All right, thank you very much. And with
Yes,
that,
Jerry, thank you very much for that comment. I completely agree. This was made successful because of the team working together, the associations and the Bureau, really. So I appreciate that comment.
there are no other requests for comment at the moment. Do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Okay, yes, thank you. Jerry, I'm sorry about those technical difficulties. One of these days, we're really going to learn how to use WebEx. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 7, licensing statistical report and update on examination development. In May and October are 2 meetings. In May, we typically do a 6-month look back on our statistics, and then October, we're providing you with the full fiscal year. So I will turn it over to Alexia Gallegos, that's what I wanted to say, and who is our licensing manager. Go ahead, Alexia.
Good morning, all. So the Bureau, oh, I'm sorry, can we actually get the licensing statistical report showing? Thank you. All right, so first slide outlines the Bureau has established timeframes or performance measures for processing complete applications. As you can see in the slide, the Bureau continues to meet the performance measures for the full fiscal year. So all of our target timeframes have been met for the complete application. On the next slide, you will see specifically that the cemetery salesperson electronic application, the online version, has a shorter overall time frame by about 3 days, and that is for the complete fiscal year. Moving to the next slide, you will see this is the 22-23 complete fiscal year for licenses issued. For 22-23, the Bureau issued 1,034 licenses, which is just a tick more from the previous fiscal year, 21-22. Moving to the next slide, we'll take a look at the renewals. And we still teeter about a little under 50% for online renewals versus mail-in. We continue to see that the deficit is likely because of the lack of a cart feature for online renewals. Everyone has to go in and renew each one individually rather than be able to create a cart and move it to renew multiple licenses at one time. Lastly, on the following slide, we see the most common deficiencies in processing oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. The next slide actually shows the passage rate, examination passage rate. So this is for the full fiscal year for the 5 examinations administered by our proctor PSI for the 5 license categories: funeral director, embalmer, cemetery broker, cemetery manager, and crematory managers. Now to the next slide. Can we move it to the next slide, please? Thank you. Now we will see the most common application deficiencies. With the passing of Senate Bill 1443, our newest deficiency is now receiving the incorrect application fee. So we are pretty much just returning those. We're not processing at this time, but that is the most common deficient application issue. And then the rest stay pretty consistent, failure to complete a live scan, sending transcripts directly to the Bureau, and so on. So moderator, if we can go back to the agenda slide about examination development, I'll talk about the current status with those. So since our last advisory committee meeting in May, the funeral director examination development has concluded, and the new examination was implemented as of October 1st. So we now have a new exam rolled out. We will monitor the examination passage rate, just to kind of check in on that. And we do appreciate all of the licensed funeral directors who participated in the examination development and occupational analysis workshops over the last year and a half or so. That is a very tough process, and we just appreciate all of the help that we've received from the industry. For this fiscal year, 23-24, I'm working in the past. The fiscal year will be busy. We have, not only do we have an occupational analysis for the crematory manager and the exam development for the same category, we also are doing a linkage study between the national examination and for the embalmer category, and that will require a one-day workshop with subject matter experts. So we will begin the recruitment process for that soon. And additionally, as mentioned, we will be conducting the full occupational analysis and examination development for the crematory manager license category. So far, we have already conducted initial interviews. This is handled by the DCA Office of Professional Examination Services, also known as OPES. They reach out to licensed individuals as crematory managers and just kind of do a quick check-in about industry trends just to kind of get the occupational analysis jump-started. So that has been completed, and we are holding our first workshop for the occupational analysis at the end of this month, October, and we've already begun the recruitment process for that. So the OA will be completed, that is the occupational analysis. It will be completed in January 2024, and that will begin our examination development process in January 2024. That's likely when we will also begin sending out mailers for recruitment for those upcoming workshops for the examination development. The anticipation for this project for the OA and examination development are anticipated to be completed by June of 2024, the end of the fiscal year, and we anticipate the new examination rolling out in fall of 2024. We encourage everyone who is interested and licensed as embalmer or crematory managers to participate in workshops. Any SMEs, as we call them, subject matter experts, who participate in the workshops are reimbursed at a daily rate of $250, and those who participate in in-person workshops are eligible for daily rates plus some meal reimbursement. The Bureau handles all travel arrangements for the subject matter experts. So anyone who is interested, please, please, please make sure you update your mailing address with us so that we can make sure that we get you all of our mailers and recruitment documents and get people involved in the process. This is a smaller license category than the last couple years, so all participation is greatly appreciated. And that concludes my updates.
Thank you, Alexia. One thing that we haven't seen in a while with this committee, or even with me as the bureau chief, is the national exam that we are doing. Do we call it an occupational analysis of the national exam?
I call it a linkage study.
A linkage study, excuse me. So the linkage study, just for those individuals who don't know yet, the embalmer license type requires 2 exams, one national exam, that is the sciences section, and then a California law exam hosted by the department, developed by the department through the exam development process. So this linkage study is to ensure that that exam is it is actually mandated by law, so we do have to do it every so many years. And it's just to ensure that this exam is defensible, that it is in alignment with what our laws are for exam studies. So I'm looking forward to that, and it is a much shorter requirement for participation for our licensees. So as Alexia said, it's just a one-day workshop, which is great, and not a lot of time requirement for our licensees to participate in that linkage study. So, and then moving on to the crematory manager exam development and occupational analysis. As we said, there's not many of those throughout the state of California, and the need is great. So we do appreciate everyone's participation. We have 5 license types, and the law says every 5 to 7 years we do an occupational analysis and exam development. So we are in constant OA and exam development. I don't know what's going on with our camera. It's doing things all by itself.
It sure is.
Stop doing that. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So we greatly appreciate all of our licensees and stakeholders that have participated in these over the years. And if there's any questions, you can contact Alexia directly or email cfb@dca.ca.gov. Okay, are there any questions from committee members? Jolena, hands up.
Thank you very much. This is the area of our advisory committee meeting that I look forward to the most every single time, because it's incredible to see the number of licenses that are issued and how efficient the Bureau is in processing those applications. And kudos to the incredible lift in the department. The one question that came to mind this time in reviewing the slides was how we have managed to move from essentially like a 50-50 split on the funeral director's exam passing rate to something that's much heavier on a 60-40. And I was wondering, was there any analysis done? I know that it's probably looking back now that there's a new version of the funeral director's exam that went live October 1st, but do we know, can we hypothesize what happened in terms of the shift to a majority of applicants not passing?
You know, this has always been, I'd say, a question that I've exactly come up with also is, why is it that only half, and now less than half, pass the funeral director exam when we are current on our occupational analysis and exam development using SMEs within California that range from brand new licensees to 25-year veterans in the licensee area. So the only thing I can pass on is that we do hear a lot that people like to take the exam and then to see what's on it before studying and then retaking it. So that is something that I've heard from, I attend both association meetings annually. I bring this up in conversations with stakeholders. That is a common feedback that I do get, that because it's an exam that doesn't require mortuary science history or experience in the death care industry, that they really can come in pretty green when they sit at the exam, sit for the exam. So that's the only feedback really I have on that one specifically, but you can also say that about cemetery managers, you know, is that they don't have an education or experience requirement either to take the exam. So it's kind of hand in hand. I do know that just we do have more funeral directors, which can kind of skew the statistics also when you're comparing it to cemetery and crematory managers. But otherwise, and it's cheaper, yeah. So that's all I have on that. But I would love to get more feedback on that if additional stakeholders have any specific feedback on that. I would appreciate anything the Bureau can do to help assist. PSI, the testing developer, they do put out a workbook to work from. We haven't gotten any negative feedback on that workbook. We actually don't get any negative feedback from the retesters either. So, you know, the Bureau has not received any negativity on the exam itself, like we hear when other blueprints for exams change. So we really would like to explore that more and see how the Bureau can help support these first-time takers.
Thank you for the response, and I think you may have hit it on the head when you said it was a very inexpensive exam, or it was historically a very inexpensive exam.
Right, right. With the price going up, maybe we'll see, you know, that change. Thank you for your comments. I always appreciate them. Any other committee member have any comments?
No.
Okay. Any virtually? All right, then we'll open it up for public comment.
We are once again accepting
yes,
public
we have public comment in-house. Oh, sorry, David, I cut you off there.
Not a
We do have
problem.
public comment here at headquarters. Go ahead, Chris.
Regarding the linkage study that's going to be done, is that to explore the possibility of utilizing the national exam in lieu of the state exam?
No, it is not. So the linkage study is to make sure there are no deficits in the state examination that are not covered by the national examination, and make sure that our laws are hold up to the national examination requirements and knowledge base that is required.
Has that ever been considered?
Not to my knowledge.
To bring in because there is a national exam for science, the sciences section, we have not considered bringing that into California. So they're two very separate exams, science section, and then the California law exam with that's very similar to the other exams that we hold for cemetery manager, broker, et cetera. Two very different exams. So the linkage is to ensure that all areas are met between the two. But since they are very different, that ours is solely based on law and this is solely based on the sciences that they learn from mortuary science school, we will be continuing two separate exams for that license type. You're welcome. Very good question. Thank you. Okay, David, I'll turn it over to you now for any comments virtually.
All right. We are accepting public comment on agenda item 7. If you'd like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box, or better yet, tap that hand button at the bottom of your screen to raise a hand. Dial-in users will need to dial *3 to raise a hand. We're going to take just a moment to see if we have a request for public comment online. Looking around, I see no requests online. Do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8, enforcement statistical report, again for full fiscal year 22-23. I will turn it back over to Alexia. Thank you.
We can pull up the enforcement statistical report, first slide. So the first slide shows the number of completed inspections for the first year. We can move to the next page. There we go. So the inspections completed for this year are down from the previous fiscal year. So 921 were completed for fiscal year 22-23.
in comparison to the 1,240 in previous fiscal year. This is largely in part due to the vacancy we've had in the field representative position.
Can I add a comment to that? Additionally, the Bureau does meet its mandate for inspections. So there are mandated inspections for cemeteries, crematories, and a percentage of cremated remains disposers. All of those mandates are met. You can see really the decline, the significant decline was more in funeral establishments, as those are not mandated. However, we try to visit them either every year or every other year to inspect.
Thank you. Moving on to the next slide, we'll see the total number of complaints received for the 22-23 fiscal year was approximately 999. The majority of those being for the funeral licensees versus the cemetery, and that is always largely in part due to the difference in licensed population between funerals and the cemetery side.
Significant.
Yes.
I don't know how worth that.
We have about 78% being funeral licensees of our total population. So yeah, pretty consistent about the complaints received. Moving down to the citations, again, you'll see the larger number being the funeral licensees. We issued a total of 228 citations this last fiscal year. And again, because of the large population, it is always going to be the funeral licensees that seem to be in hotter water. Not really, but getting those citations. At the very last two slides, at the last advisory committee meeting in May, there was an inquiry about trends in cemetery and funeral violations. So for this one, we decided to go ahead and do a 3-year comparison between cemetery violations and funeral violations, noted between inspections and investigations. So these are the top 3 by fiscal year. I do apologize. As I'm looking at this, I see there is a typo for fiscal year 2020-2021 on the cemetery side. 16 CCR 2333 B as in boy. That is not failure to supervise.
That is a typo.
That speaks specifically to cemetery maintenance standards. And on the funeral side, you'll see.
So for the one, so go back. I'm sorry.
Back one slide.
So for the 2021 number 3, 16 CCR, which one should it be? Should it be failure to supervise, or should it be maintenance?
That is the cemetery maintenance.
Okay, so it's the what's mistyped is the word failure to supervise. Okay, it's the summary. Okay, so cemetery maintenance in 2021 was the 3rd. Okay. This was requested. The 3-year plan was requested from a previous meeting by a committee member. So it's really giving us a good idea to see what has stayed, because historically they have been pretty stagnant of the violations. Failure to supervise is probably always going to be our most common, just because if an establishment violates the law, it is the manager's responsibility in the act to ensure compliance by the establishment or the cemetery, the business. So they do kind of go hand in hand. That's why that's number 1 for the past 3 years. So when an establishment or a cemetery violates the act, typically, depending on the violation and the egregiousness of it, the manager will also receive a citation for failing to oversee that the business was in compliance. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So, and this is on the funeral side. Go ahead, Alexia. Back over to you.
So this, again, is just the funeral violations, the top 3 for the previous 3 fiscal years in total. That concludes my spiel.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you do see here in the 2020-2021 Business and Professions Code 7707 did not appear as the top 3 in the next 2 years, which is good, which is something I like to see. So thank you very much, Alexia. Does anyone have any comments on any committee member comments? I see Jolina's hand first.
Thank you. Second most exciting area of our advisory committee is the enforcement statistical report. But I was wondering, how does the number of complaints for the last year, 22-23, compare to the previous 2 years? Are we seeing more complaints?
Yes, and the sunset report that will show in January will show a 5-year history. And you will see that 5 years ago, we received around maybe 650, let's say 670. And you'll see that the past 2 or 3 years, we've been up to 1,000 a year. So that is direct. So we have our field representatives that perform inspections and investigations. There are 8 of them that live throughout the state. They have to balance the number of inspections and the number of complaints. So you'll see mandated, consumer harm complaints need to be addressed, every single one. Mandated inspections obviously need to be addressed. And then that's why you'll see funeral home inspections decline because there is a balance where we do have to make up that workload with the large number of increased complaints we received. So this is the 3rd year in a row where we're seeing a number at about 1,000. 3rd year in a row? 2nd? 3rd. 2nd. Definitely a 2nd year.
Last year there were 1,005.
Last year was 1,005. So we're definitely seeing an uptick of complaints. But you see with 1,005 complaints, 228 citations were issued. So this is an industry where we do receive complaints that maybe do not rise to the level of a violation. But they all need to be looked at and, all need to be investigated. Absolutely. So any complaint received is investigated. That's within our jurisdiction. Did that answer your question, Jolena?
It did, and I will tell you personally, I am reassured when you look at the number of complaints versus the number of citations, that there are a multitude of reasons why people might solicit the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau as their outlet for whatever complaint they have. But I am just hoping it keeps us out of the headlines, much like what's being experienced in another state right now. That we don't end up on the 6 o'clock news.
Yes, that's my hope too. Okay, Ms. O'Farrell, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. We touched on it a little bit. I was wondering if you happen to know percentage idea of the complaints result in citations, because in looking at the citations, that could be a mix of complaints and actual inspection violations. I'm wondering if the CFB receives a complaint, how many of those roughly turn into a citation?
That is a very great question. You are correct. That number of citations relates to both inspections and investigations. In our annual report that's posted each year, we do report citations from inspections versus citations from complaints. And so going forward, we can differentiate that out in the enforcement statistical report. And additionally, we can, we do already report that in the annual report. I don't even want to guess which one's more than the other, because I haven't looked at the annual report in a minute. I want to say I feel like they're kind of even, but I without me pulling up our annual reports, I cannot. But the DCA, the department oversees the annual report for the entire department. So it's the DCA annual report. I can also send committee members a link to all of our reports. On the cover or on the table of contents, you can click on cemetery funeral and it'll take you straight down to our few pages of statistics. But that is a very good question, and it should be something that we can share during the meeting. I can also give you what we have for our last annual report on the side. I'll send that to you. Well, I'll send it to everybody.
Sure, that'd be wonderful, and thank you for in the annual report. I had forgotten about that, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. There's so many statistics there. I don't expect anybody to remember which ones are on there and which ones aren't. It's full of numbers. Okay, any other committee questions? I'll open it up to the public. We have one in-house, Mr. Donovan.
So going back to the total complaints received, and this is in the annual report as well, but number of those complaints that don't fall under Bureau jurisdiction, as an example, a cemetery complaint, but it's a district cemetery. Just curious if that number is trended or reported.
That number is, so the question is, out of the number of complaints we receive, how many are not within Bureau jurisdiction? That is another statistic captured, yes, in the annual report, which we can provide for you. I can say that they are very, very low. Which ones do we look at that refer? So as of not this past fiscal year, so the one before, 21-22 with 1,005 complaints, 1,000 were referred for investigation. So if during that investigation we then find out further that it's not within our jurisdiction, it's still been investigated, but on the initial, like it's not our cemetery, it's a religious cemetery, for example, that's I don't think that's even included in complaints received, is it? Yeah. No, that will not be included in the 1,000, but we do have that number of referred for that. Okay, and then we'll open up for public comment for those participating virtually. Oh, and Ms. O'Farrell, is your hand up to speak again, or did we just forget to? Okay. All right, we're moving on to public comment virtually, please.
All right, public comment virtually, agenda item 8. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3. Everyone may type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. And it looks like Steve Crawford would like to speak. You'll be given 5 minutes with a 15-second warning. Hold on just a moment. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
I greatly do appreciate this 3-year look back on the most common violations. What I think would help too is just the sheer number of violations. Looking very briefly at the citations page, I see that there has been a rather large uptick in the CCR 1204 violations that have been handed out. I'm just wondering if the threshold for meeting that violation has been lowered, or if there's an increased focus on it, because looking back at 21, there was only 26 violations. Last year, there were 77. This year, we're on track for about 100. I'm just curious as to why that might be.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. I can speak to a little bit without performing, additional research on it. However, the Bureau does follow a progressive discipline model when it comes to low-level violations. So if an establishment, let's say, violates, didn't sign the proper form, the manager would only receive a warning. Next time we go out and do an inspection, we see that CPL doesn't match the GPL. It's at that time that the manager, even though they were a different violation from last time to this time, that's still now 2 times there's been a violation, then the manager will go up to, $100 citation, depending on the egregiousness, with a citation with a fine versus, it may continue to still be a warning for the establishment, being that was the first time they had violated and it was low level. So it's dependent upon the history of the establishment that the manager is overseeing, and dependent upon the history of, the manager's violations in and of themselves. I hope that answered your question a bit, and we can also look into that as well. There's definitely been more citations through the audit unit as well. for not submitting, reporting on time. That has definitely increased over the past 5 years of the Bureau's due diligence to ensure that reporting is done on time, and those also lead to citations potentially for the manager as well.
It just seems it's in the last few years that there is a ramp up, and it seems like a concerted focus on just this one violation. So that's what I'm curious about. If there has been added focus just on this.
Not just on this, no. This is the focus would have been most likely due to the increased citations issued, the increased complaints we're receiving, direct relation, being that the violation for an establishment would have various Business and Professions Code or Health and Safety Code or California Code of Regulations. The all-encompassing, overseeing to ensure compliance is typically the most related one, so it would be specific to that code. Did I make that sound right?
Yeah, I understand.
I think the only thing I could add to that.
Yeah, historically there have been 15, not even 20 citations, and now we're up to 100. It just seems like something has changed.
I would say that my predecessor began the progressive discipline for the managers, I believe, just a year or two before me. So it's just been progressively getting to this point, I think, for repeated managers, getting higher fines for multiple violations each time there's either a complaint or an inspection. So it does increase, definitely the fine amounts and the number if it's repeated, because they do receive, for most cases, if they're non-egregious low level, they will just receive a warning, more of an educational letter instead of going straight to citation and fine. So if they're going up to citation and fine, that means they've already received a warning that either they or the establishment or their employees have violated the act. But that is something I do appreciate bringing it to our attention, and it's something that the Bureau can look into more.
I just wanted, so it sounds like it was this progressive policy that was instituted probably back in 2018-19 that is really the cause of this.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know 18-19 specifically because I wasn't the bureau chief, but definitely within the last 7 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome. Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
There are no other requests for public comment. Do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, we can move on to our last agenda item number 9. So let's talk about the proposed advisory committee meeting dates for 2024. We typically hold 2 full advisory committee meetings in May and October. The proposed dates I have for us to discuss today would be Wednesday, May 22nd, again from 10 to 12 or the close of business, and Wednesday, October 9th. Again, the same time, same place. Does any committee members have issues with those 2 dates, or would they like to put forth any new dates? Do I need to give anyone some time to pull up their calendars or anything? Give it a minute.
Gina, what was the second date, the one for October?
The 9th, Wednesday the 9th. Okay, seeing no hands, we're gonna set those dates today. They will be posted to our website in the coming weeks, mostly with just a to be determined for, obviously agenda handouts. But they both, because of the new bill that's passed, they will both be held in this format that we have here today. Okay, so ready to do public comments on dates? I guess I can. Let's do a public comment on proposed meeting dates. Does any stakeholders have issues with or concerns with those 2 dates? Okay. Any virtually?
We are now accepting public comments online for proposed meeting dates. If you'd like to make a comment, please tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen to raise a hand. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. Anyone may type the word comment into the Q&A box to indicate they wish to make a comment. Let's take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. So seeing that there are no further comments on Agenda 9, I can now adjourn this meeting at 11:50. I thank everyone for their participation, and I'll see you all in October. If not sooner. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.